The time is just gone 8:43 as we continue with the broadcast this morning. Now, on the 11th of December, a press statement was issued, and this is the coalition of religious leaders who met with the Department of Basic Education to discuss a number of concerns. And the purpose was to engage with the DBE because there are deep concerns by the coalition, and this coalition consisted of the United Ulama Council of South Africa and a coalition of cultural and educational groups from the South African community of the faith-based fraternity. Now, there are a number of issues here with regards to the DBE and its role in fulfilling the constitutional responsibility and obligation to ensure that the rights of parents, children, educators, and SGBs are protected and respected. And to tell us more, the chairperson of the coalition that met with the DBE is none other than Haji Imraahn Subrathie. Haji Imraahn, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jummah Mubarak to you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Haji Naid Wadi. I hope you're keeping well, and Jazakallah for having me on your show this morning.
Yes, this was absolutely necessary to actually have you on this, because what we are going to talk about is extremely important. And sometimes, we don't realize, the how critical this situation is, particularly with regard to the rights and the obligations with regards to parents, SGBs, teachers, and learners as well. Now, just to give context to this and this coalition of religious leaders that met with the department, just to give some background and to put context into this press release that was issued, Haji Imraahn.
Haji Naid Wadi, as you may recall, I think you and I must have had a program, in the past year, maybe more than just one, in which we've been discussing the establishment or the formation of a steering committee on same-sex attractions and sexual dysphoria by UXA, or LGBTQ for the ease of a better word. And this entire committee was formed in 2022 when we received concerns, and I am also the Secretary General of AMAL, the Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers. And the concerns we received was from Muslim schools and schools who expressed a concern over the introduction of sexuality and gender-based education in school curriculum. And the concern was, are we obliged to teach this? What are our options? And what is a comprehensive response to this? And this was a profound question raised and by the community. And response to that led to the formation of the steering committee, which has been working tirelessly for over a year. And we must understand the starting point was in the topic of education. So for almost a year, we've been deliberating, we've been engaging with each other. So what happened on December 5th was very, very big. It was very significant. It's almost an akin, and I used this, to a David versus Goliath kind of a meeting, because it's been almost taboo. It's been almost an action. We've been afraid of engaging with the Department of Basic Education because all we've seen coming is a top-down kind of like approach towards what we can teach. And against the backdrop of what we know that is happening in the context of gender-based education and gender identity in the world, it's been a concern to us in South Africa that this agenda is just being forced down to us. And are we expected to accept it as parents, as religious communities, etc.? So it's been a challenge for us. How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to engage with this? And the steering committee has done several activities. And perhaps the most significant activity, I would say, was the engagement on December 5th, where we actually sat across the table with the Department of Basic Education, and we expressed wholeheartedly what was within us about our concerns, our total unacceptance of what the Department of Basic Education is trying to impose upon our children in the context of gender-based education, in the context of gender identity. And what was extra special of this is, alhamdulillah, the Ummah, through this steering committee, has actually galvanized and was responsible for galvanizing in our build up to the meeting. And one of our enshrined 12 points is to, because we work within a strategic plan, is to interact with other faith-based organizations that share a similar concern as us. And alhamdulillah, this was the culmination of acting upon that strategic objective. And that saw us engaging with 5 other large, or rather 4 other, with us was 5. We constituted a faith-based coalition representing in excess of 20 million people that sat across the table and told to DBE that we don't agree with what you are trying to do. What you are teaching our children, or what you intend teaching our children, is contrary to our established beliefs, our customs, our values, and that is protected in the Constitution. So yes, it was very profound. It was a culmination, I would think, of a great amount of effort by the steering committee. And what was amazing, alhamdulillah, as I mentioned this, is that the Ummah managed to galvanize other like-thinking faith-based bodies to come together and engage with the DBE.
Yes, and I think this is where this is so important in terms of what you're saying is through the steering committee and through your involvement in this coalition, we're able to draw in people, and 20 million representation of 20 million people is by no means a small number. Now we know that for many other faith-based organizations have somewhat been hesitant to actually take up this issue, but now that they are part and parcel of a coalition, obviously speaks volumes, but also carries a lot more weight. And I know you yourself, personally, you've even raised this issue at the ANC forum directly with the president of the country.
Yes, I was quite vociferous, and then because as you know, Haji and I, you're also part of the committee. I chair the committee, and when we were told on December 5th we're having a meeting, and we were told that there's going to be some senior people there, and there's going to be legal counsels. It was quite concerning. It was quite we were anxious. And alhamdulillah, Allah is kind and merciful to us, that wherever we had the opportunity to engage, we've engaged. And when you're on the path of haqq and the path of truth, and you take a position of righteousness and you defend it. So alhamdulillah, when we had the opportunity with the chairperson of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, when he was here in November, I raised the questions with him, and I think that I took up about 5 minutes to 6 minutes in my questioning time, and his response to that was he needs to send the Minister of Basic Education to Durban to engage with us, because clearly he was unable to respond to my question. He was probably outside his scope, which I understand. And similarly, when I had the opportunity of engaging with the president, I was actually going to use my time to engage on the issue of Palestine, but alhamdulillah, there were many others in the audience that I knew would engage with on the issue of Palestine. And as you know, when you have these opportunities to engage with the president or these types of dignitaries, you can't ask several questions. You got one chance and you use your chance wisely. And alhamdulillah, again, with the president, I engaged on the issue, and I said to the president in no uncertain terms that the litmus test of any democracy is how it is able to accommodate the interests of minorities. And I cautioned the president that in our enthusiasm as a South African government to accommodate the interests of our minorities, and I'm speaking of the group that has the pro-LGBTQ protagonists, in our enthusiasm to accommodate the interests of a minority, we cannot and should not exclude the other worldviews that exist. And these worldviews are the views of the significant majority of the people of South Africa. And I cautioned the president that the imposition of a single worldview is unconstitutional. It needs to be re-looked at and a space needs to be found where where all views exist, not a scenario where a single worldview that's actually foreign to all religions and customs in South Africa is imposed. And that's what DB has started doing and was doing, and that's what we call them out for.
Yes. Now I see the press release speaks about the engagement being seen in a positive light by both the DBE and the coalition. And if you could just add a bit more in terms of how the DBE had actually received the delegation and also the submissions that were made by the coalition.
I think, I mentioned this to my team, and I said to the guys, we have a wonderful constitution in South Africa, and our constitution gives, virtually everybody rights. And those minorities who have an alternative view have a right within the constitution, and we acknowledge that and we respect that. But so do us, so do we. Faith-based people also have a right. And I think they were afraid to speak up, and nobody was prepared to take the charge. And as I alluded earlier, alhamdulillah, the Ummah took the charge and galvanized and brought, and 20 million is only those who joined us. There are many that are unaware of it and will find out. And I believe that number of 20 million will double to 40 million as people find out of the work that's being done. So what we did was, the first and foremost, so what we did was we taken a position paper. We drafted, alhamdulillah, a brilliant position paper. And the reason I mentioned the constitution earlier, we have a constitution. I have a copy of it here and I'll share it with you. This is the position paper that we had prepared. It's a 45-page document. It's a comprehensive document that's well researched, well legally reviewed, well supported with constitutional law, with international law, with everything. And alhamdulillah, it is a position we have taken, and we stood behind our position paper. Our position paper articulated, and I must say that DBE was very, very impressed. We had a presentation where myself, I led the delegation, and alhamdulillah, we had leaders from various faith-based that were with us, both in person and online, and each person presented a section from the position paper. So there was not a single person that did all the presentation. Rather, it was a collaboration of different religious leaders presented different aspects. And due to the sensitivity of what we were talking, everything was scripted within the document, and we all spoke to a script. So I think it was very well prepared from ourselves. Alhamdulillah, it was very well presented. There was truly a democratic feeling from ourselves. And for me personally, it was very joyful that we all agreed on something. And what did we agree on? We all agreed on a simple principle that as parents and as religious leaders, it is our unalienable right to pass on a value, a set of beliefs, a set of culture to our children that we have inherited through centuries of unaltered doctrines. And everybody was unanimous. In fact, Haji Naib Wadi, right until 10:30 the night before, I was fielding call from one faith-based organization that said to me, Imraahn, but this is also contrary to our spirituality. So I said to her, my friend, my sister, please, we must amend it, because the document must represent the feelings of every faith-based organization that is on the same. So we presented a beautiful document. Alhamdulillah, DBE received it. They said clearly they could not respond in that meeting, and we acknowledged that. They could not respond because we took up much of the meeting presenting. They acknowledged the very polished presentation, both in the document and in the way we articulated ourselves. They promised to revert to us. We had requested to them to come back to us by December 14th, but we don't expect that the issues will be resolved, but we expect to engage early in the new year to find a meaningful resolution to the challenges. So alhamdulillah, they received it very well, and we are very optimistic that we will work together to find a win-win outcome, where a scenario where not a single view is imposed, but rather our children are exposed to the various options and worldviews that exist in our country.
Well, Alhamdulillah, Haji Imran, we could engage a lot more, but unfortunately, time is of the essence. But, this is obviously the result and the culmination of hard work that has taken place for better part of over a year. And I know there have been many, many interventions. There have been many initiatives that have taken place throughout the entire year, right until yesterday, recently, where the South African National Muslim Women's Forum, obviously through CII, Alhamdulillah, we carried it live on Salam Media as well. So, Alhamdulillah, this is obviously a highlight to end this year, Alhamdulillah, and looking forward to the new year. I'm sure there is a lot more in store, and we will talk about that from time to time. And as part and parcel of this hearing committee on the media side, Alhamdulillah, we will continue with what we need to do, inshallah. This is obviously a jihad of its own, a jihad of our times as well, which we need to take. And Alhamdulillah, we've seen the dedication from yourself as the Amir, and also all the other Amirs of the various subcommittees. Alhamdulillah, tremendous, a lot of effort has actually gone in such a short space of time, inshallah. And the struggle, inshallah, will continue. But for now, my brother, Jazakallah khairan so much. Have yourself a wonderful Jummah as well, inshallah. Remember us in your du'as. Remember the Ummah in your du'as. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah Haji Naid Wali for having me on your show, and Jazakallah for being part of the steering committee and driving us from the media point. It's truly, truly appreciated.
Haji Imraahn Subrathie with us this morning, the Amir of the LGBTQ Steering Committee, which is under the auspices of the United Ulama Council of South Africa, and also the chairperson of this coalition of religious leaders that met, or religious organizations that met with the Department of Basic Education. With that, we're going to go for a break. Next up, we've got Maulana Muhammad Saliji coming through with the Jummah Nasiha.